Okay.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March PCA talk. Tonight, I'm very, very happy and honored to introduce Michael Woolworth. So first of all, I want to thank you, Michael, for accepting our invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here.
We'll see you afterwards.
We'll see. So, Michael is a publisher and printmaker. Since the early 1980s, he has built projects with hundreds of contemporary artists. Together with them, they completed both high and limited editions books and prints. He arrived in Paris in 1979, and a few months after his arrival, he started collaborating with Frank Bordas, and they started to work together, and they actually worked with such artists as Roberto Matta, Jean Dubuffet, and Jean Messager, amongst others. In 1985, Michael opened his own studio on the Ile Saint-Louis, and here his first project was to collaborate again with Matta, Roberto Matta, and he actually made an illustration of Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote. They made 90 prints, 90 scenes, inspired by the text by Cervantes. This is also where he started collaboration with American painter William Mackendree, with the Austrian artist Gunter Damisch, and where he completed in 1997 the book African Matricule with French artist Armand. In the year 2000, Michael expanded his studio, first in Montparnasse and later on in 2003 in Malakoff, where he began working with Jim Dine, with Irish artist Sean Scully, and with Spanish artist José Maria Sicilia. Finally, in 2005, he set his studio in the historic Parisian passage of Rue de la Roquette, where he still works today, and where he continues his projects with Jim Dine, with Marc Desgrandchamps, Sean Scully, and with many other international artists, in a strong spirit of collaboration. His studio in Rue de la Roquette is a true laboratory for creation and experimentation. He constantly reinvents, together with his team, the art of printmaking, and he prints, and this is really important for us tonight, he prints exclusively on hand press, on manual presses. His publications have been acquired in many public and private collections, amongst them the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris, the MoMA in New York, the Reina Sofia in Spain, and the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. In 2011, Michael was honored with two distinctions by the French Ministry of Culture. He was given the title of Maître d'Art, and he was named Chevalier dans l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres. His workshop was also given the EPV label, which stands for Entreprise du Patrimoine Vivant, and so is a living patrimony of France. And a retrospective exhibition of his work is now in Belgium, at La Louvière. It's currently on show at the Centre de la Gravure et de l'Image Imprimée. It's titled Encore sous pression, still under pressure. So if you have time, it's up until the 7th of May, so go ahead and take a look. I mean, he's going to talk about it tonight. It looks amazing. So his talk at PCA tonight will focus on his experience as a printmaker in Paris and also on the art of collaboration. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Yeah, good evening, folks. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, thank you, Barbara, for bringing me here. This is great. Yeah, it's great to be here, I guess, because not that I do this type of thing that often, but I never get to do it in English. So this is going to be fun. Let me try and give a little peek into our world, you know. Before we start seeing images, just give you a little bit of an idea of how we go about things. Listen, painting, sculpture, installation art, photography, video, conceptual art, and the lot, as mediums, just don't do it for me. They really don't get me excited. I get a kick in creative thinking only when expressed through the printed matter. All the news fit to print, says the New York Times. when it's printed, it's true. If it's not in print form or multiplied, it's merely useless caprice for me. Add to the fact that edition making can be acquired perhaps by 50 to 60% of the planet, the other stuff perhaps at 0.1% at best. Yes, I'm American. I run a publishing printing company here in Paris, as Barbara says, working only with contemporary visual artists and writers. I've been doing it since I'm 18 years old, and I really like it. I wouldn't swap this life for any other. I'm not an artist. Don't want to be an artist. It's not my thing. But want to live my life immersed in art and ideas. And my occupation, I guess when it works, makes an extremely rich life compared to so many other ways of being in art without being the creator, if I could put it that way. I started all this when I was 18, so basically I didn't know what I was doing at all. I'm from the East Coast. I was born in Maine, brought up mostly between Manhattan and Maine. And after my freshman year in college, I got the opportunity to come to Europe for the summer, as people do, and landed in Paris and try to write away the American reflex to find a small job somewhere for pocket money upon my return. I tried for waiter or dishwasher in all the American bars and restaurants at the time. They were in Les Halles. It was a complete disaster, an utter fiasco. Nothing worked. But before moving on from Paris, I had met a man, a French painter, who told me of a young guy my age who had just opened up something called a lithography shop. And it looked like he was quite overwhelmed and could perhaps, need some help. And that's what happened. We met. I started immediately. It was about a mile and a half south of here. And, when September rolled around, it was too good. I just never went back. I learned everything live in a professional context, just from scratch. Yeah, it was too good, but so was life on campus at a beautiful American liberal arts college during that freshman year of mine. It was also a form of utopia that at the same time scared me, which was a rare, mature thought of mine at the time. But I felt uneasy about what would happen to me once I finished those 4 golden college years and was let out on my own. I was fairly insecure. I transitioned well. This was 1979, as Barbara said. So this opportunity in this, I thought, magical universe with artists and writers in the center of Paris, for heaven's sakes, seemed like the luckiest stroke ever. I just went for it and learned the trade and ended up opening my own business at age 25 in 1985, and I'm still here, folks. Learning the trade means several things. It means knowing up and down the technique. That's 5 years, just to start getting a bit confident. It means knowing how to deal with artists. That's kind of a lifetime. It means, knowing how to deal with clients. That's never simple. It means also knowing how to do the accounting, do the books and all the administrative needs. And that's never a real pleasure. It's more like a sporting accomplishment, you know what I mean? But I believe sincerely that running a business, failing, starting over, going through rough patches is normal and somewhat important to what I do. The love of art, the quest for ideas, needs to be grounded in some form of economy. To most people of the outside world, we thrive in some fairly heavy utopian activities. Art and ideas need to somehow make sense as a function in society, in my mind, even if by definition it often disputes its foundations. I do this by inviting artists to come and make things, and then I try and sell it to people so they can have it in their homes, so to speak. I'm saying all this because as much as at the shop we live a great experience with everyone, we still have to make the month, you know what I mean? We've got to eat thanks to it, and it's tough. My pride, I guess, is that, well, we're still here, and we're not going away. My place is close to what I fantasize is, or certainly was, a musical recording studio. Musicians were called artists, and they would go to studio and cut a record. Well, with me, the artists definitely come in and cut an image. We kind of put together engineering, production, and distribution all under the same roof. I'm born in a relatively new class called the publisher printers, which appeared on the scene a lot in the 80s, all around the Occident in any case. Before, there was a hierarchy. In other words, there was the artist, who was contacted by a publisher, who in turn would go get in touch with the printer and send the artist to. When the image was finished, the publisher would disperse the copies through his or her system of distribution, like galleries, private clientele, mail, subscriptions by mail, hotels and private businesses. That way doesn't really exist anymore. And so if you wanted to work with active, new, exciting artists on the scene, well, there was nobody to finance all that. You had to take control and invent your own method to your madness, I'd say. The specificity of my studio is we do everything on hand-operated presses, mostly built at the end of the 19th century. We need no electricity. When the power goes down in the neighborhood, we keep on working, and everybody's outside of the businesses. Everybody's just smoking, and we can keep going. Yeah. So now we're going to start looking at stuff. Show you a few images as we go through, and all this is going to work really well. If I go next, there we go. There we go. Well, voila. This is the show right now in Belgium at the National Print Museum in Belgium. So you see this is actually the top floor that has a lot of concentration on the artist books, but we're going to be showing you a little teaser clip that the museum did. And the idea is that I'm actually supposed to be looking at my screen here while saying it, so that but how we're going to do this. Oh yes, this is going to work really well. So if I go like this and this, that's the studio. That's the studio in the Bastille. We're on the Place de la Bastille at 2 Rue de la Roquette, which is the first passageway of what we call the Faubourg. Here you see some of people working with me, looking at the prints, some of the artists doing their thing, and we'll get back to all this in a little bit. You also have, and then right, and this is the bottom floor of the, and I'm doing this synchronized. Wow, this is good. And so now, how does this work?
So you just with the mouse.
And so I go with the mouse.
It should be, you click on the screen.
No.
Because this is our first there's just a couple little videos.
There it is. I can't do it upside down.
Upside down.
Maybe you can.
You can't do it upside down. Man, I don't know who's going to be able to do this upside down.
Oh, no. No, go back.
You go one more. Oh no, we got to go back. Right. Sorry. No. Come around, Tara. Help me out here.
Okay, let's get
I'm not a mouse guy anymore, so I've lost complete touch of all this.
There it is.
Oh, I see.
There we go.
Yeah, so now you're going to have to try out your best French.
La vision insensée d'une cinquantaine d'artistes. Vous avez dans cette exposition une colonie de nudistes, car la plupart des œuvres ne sont pas encadrées. On voit la matière directement. Cela ressemble énormément à l'ambiance dans laquelle nous vivons toute l'année à l'atelier. Nous avons déployé les projets les plus fous en très grand format. Je pense aux pièces uniques de Gunter Damisch, aux monotypes de Christian Schwarzwald, les grandes lithomonotypes de Jean-Michel Ottoniel, Barthélemy Togo, Frédérique Loutz, Jean-François Marie-Ange, Marc Desgrandchamps, Philippe Favier, Richard Gorman, Carole Benzaken, la magnifique série de Marie-Ange Guilleminot, ainsi que Daniel Pomerol. Nous avons également un travail très important avec l'artiste américain Jim Dine. Arrive ensuite l'artiste espagnol José Maria Sicilia, là qui représente vraiment un climax de ce que l'atelier peut produire, c'est-à-dire où l'artiste va utiliser nos moyens pour créer une œuvre unique. Les artistes ne viennent que très rarement avec des modèles. Ils créent dans la matière, c'est ça qui m'intéresse. Il faut que la matière du médium sorte quelque chose qu'ils n'ont pas l'habitude de faire spécialement. On est comme un laboratoire visuel. Les artistes viennent pour réaliser des œuvres qui sont, je dirais, plus des œuvres que des estampes eux-mêmes. L'estampe est un médium et dans notre cas un prétexte pour faire venir des gens qui nous coupent le souffle, je dirais. Nous sommes des tireurs à la main et nous le resterons.
Yeah. Well, that gives you a kind of a sneak preview of what's happening in Belgium. This is a town that has their National Print Museum, which is a bit north of the border of France, going up to Brussels, in the town called La Louvière. And yeah, it was a big thing to get it all together, to get all the work there. They were great. They still are. And I go there occasionally to do what I'm doing here, or to give visits to schools or to groups, and it's fun. And so, right, my idea tonight was to sort of not show work necessarily, but to talk about how we make things, or to show how we make things. Of course, I'm not going to be showing all the details and stuff like that, but still, try and focus on a couple projects, or to get a breeze through some of the stuff we've been doing lately. This was something you saw in the Belgian film. Is most likely one of the grand oeuvres that I've ever made. It's a rug. It's a rug that was conceived by myself and the Spanish artist called José Maria Sicilia. He had been invited in 2003 to imagine how to, by the Louvre Museum, was just starting to, how can I say? What?
Don't mind. Just
Yeah.
take cancel.
Wonderful. The Louvre was just starting a program of integrating contemporary art into the different rooms here and there, and so they asked about 10 artists to choose something in the Louvre that they could either delve into, replace, or be alongside. Cecilia loved this huge rug in the Oriental Middle East department. That's still there. And said, listen, can we figure out a way to use the pattern from this rug and make something that's unique, this is not an addition, and replace the rug, have them remove the rug and put our own rug in. This was the original rug. It's a basic rug. This is from Persia. It's a 17th century rug. It's the biggest thing they have in the Louvre there. So we started by setting up scaffolding and photographing every section of it so that we could recompose it onto the computer and onto the Photoshop world. With that, he imagined changing, we'll go back one, using the same pattern, but integrating in the pattern instead of the threads and all that, a patchwork, a network of beehives, of the octagonal beehive thing. And so we took photos of the beehive pattern and eventually replaced them through months of working on Photoshop. That was fun. And once we got that, we start making plates. Now here we're using the technique of lithography. Lithography is a very supple technique. You can do many things with it because you can use photography. You can draw. You can do flats. It's great. It's something that gives you a lot of leg room. This is my assistant at the time. We were making the plates. First step, you make the plates. You see the films over there. You start recognizing a bit the patterns. We have to cut it up into, 20 different sections. And here's when you shoot the plate onto a light-sensitive, you shoot the film onto a light-sensitive plate. Within the studio, the artist who was starting to work on some of the smaller format trials where we actually, let's go back one. We actually got this idea that, let's make a rug, but let's make it an object. And let's do it on something that's solid. So it came back to me that I had visited the town of Limoges in the center of France. They used to have a very big tradition of lithography studios that would print patterns and designs for the porcelain industry, which Limoges is very famous for. It has a really big porcelain factories right and left. And the designers or the artists even would make prints that would be onto transfer paper, transferred onto the porcelain, and then put through whatever they would do, heating it up in the kilns or and stuff like that. So with that in mind, we figured that we could figure out a way how to transfer an image from our press onto something solid. And we just basically took the very banal thing of plaster blocks to build walls like we have everywhere here. And they come in that 50 by 60 centimeter size, and they all just lock into each other. But they're nice because they're kind of porous, they're kind of soft, so you can imagine that our printing process would work somehow. So, and you'll see a bit later on also. So we started printing on Chinese paper, on very thin Chinese paper they used to make kites. And with the whole idea is that you do it hot off the press. The ink is fresh. You got your image on the page. You put that image face against your plaster blocks, and then with a solvent base and varnish and a brush, like what he's doing right now, you pass it on the back of it, and it merely transfers. And it leaves a trace of that print. And so that was really great and here we have the plaster blocks arriving because there was 84 plaster blocks. It was big. So, and there we have the studio where we were doing all this, more of the trials happening, trying to find color and all that, trying out waxes, not really knowing where we were going, but you could really see well the idea of the plaster blocks. Yeah. And this was pretty ambitious. You know, it took us 6-7 months to do, every day working on it. And we had the etching press right next to there, which we would print lithography plates on the etching press. And you can see one of the Chinese papers just sitting there hanging on the side, which would be thrown out afterwards. We wouldn't use them. So please interrupt me anytime you want if there's something that's intriguing you that you're really not getting, because all this is pretty much algebra, I understand. First pass, there you have hanging the Chinese sheets once they were used, once they were transferred. And on the floor you see the first transfer. So here we go. We start on the first layer. We did 4 layers. 4 layers in the sense that we printed each section 4 times. I mean, we'd go through the whole rug, one stretch, and then we start from the beginning again and register, pinpoint registration, one on top of the other. First pass. So here we go. The team is settling down the Chinese sheet and making sure it's registering perfectly on the one before. And then once the solvent has been put down, they're starting to just bring it up. Gotta love my great photography. It's really, you're gonna have a lot of these iPhone type shots, although there wasn't iPhones back then. And there's the rug finished with all the printing plates surrounding it around. And there it was installed in the Louvre, because that was the first step. The Louvre started at the Louvre, and then it kind of went all over the planet, and now we just installed it in Belgium, so that was fun. The rug was so unique, and it was so I mean, I couldn't really work after that for a couple weeks once we had finished it. It was one of those things you do once in a lifetime, I guess. I mean, we thought we were going to do 5 rugs, different ones. We never got around to that. We're still talking about it, though. So who knows? Now, I'm going to sort of blast you with 2 or 3 images at a time of the different artists that have been working recently with us. It's mostly recent shots. And here you have Carole Benzaken working directly on stone. She's a great French painter, lovely woman, drawing directly and with it's the straightforward pencil on stone type deal. Yeah. Stéphane Bordarier, wonderful abstract French painter. This was a experience of trying to make paper, paper directly in the pulp, making the image directly in the paper. I had never done it before. We got molds together. We mixed color because his world is strictly sort of monochrome flats, and we started putting all these things together. It was a complete disaster. Nothing worked. We never finished the project. This was back in Malakoff in maybe 2004, around there. It was so much fun, and it made us bond with the artist, even if it all failed utterly and pitifully. It kind of kept us close somehow, and we since then have gone on and done many things together. I mean, this is one of the more recent ones. It's not from the Paper Pulp series at all, which never existed, but it's that type of work. Next one is young Flemish star in the sort of cartoon bande dessinée illustration world called Brecht Evans, and he's quite something in action, where he's both working on stone, mostly lithography and a bit of woodcut, and getting his working on with brush on stone like that directly. Or here we did this crazy project of a world map of poetry, where he studied poetry for 6 months and tried to synthesize the maximum amount of what's gone on on the whole planet in poetry. I mean, a best of, obviously, and create this world map that sort of had something to do with the medieval maps, how they were made before. And this is all made from plate lithography. So he would draw, as we saw in the first picture, onto the mylars, which are tracing papers, I think, in this case. And then we transfer it onto plate, and here they are correcting some of the details here and there before we put another color. I assume that most of you understand that printmaking works a lot with layers. In other words, when you see yellow, for example, that's going to be a yellow plate, although it's in black right now. The red is going to be on another plate, the blue will be on another plate, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to disassemble, deconstruct your image in your head in the beginning with my help, and start plotting that. And that's really fascinating to do at times. And that's when it's finished and celebrating with his girlfriend. So, and that was a big project. It took us 6 months to do that one too, but not in the same. Blaise Drummond. Blaise Drummond is a wonderful, incredible Irish artist, and this is how he makes woodcuts. He jumps up and down on planks of wood to break them, to snap them, so that he can get that effect like you're seeing on the right over there with the sort of red bird, which we can see very poorly, but that kind of tree trunk shape. He likes to make them by snapping the wood so that something you couldn't really draw. And these are some of the Drummond images that are mostly done in lithography and woodcut with some photogravure in it. That's what I'm sort of wanted to show you, is people are working, people doing the stuff. And there's a Blaise Drummond print, one of the first ones we did together. Now, I started publishing him and started knowing him back in 2006. We're 2017 now. He comes from Ireland once a year, maybe twice, and we've made maybe 25, 30 images together now, and now we're hoping to start kicking on an artist book. And that's already something. Marie-Ange Guilleminot, French conceptual artist, also working a lot with clothes design and performance art. And this was a large series where let's see, I think we have, we see an image from far of, the idea here was we take her images from her performances that people took pictures of, or she did, and we put them in a square. They're always rectangular or something. Put them in a square so they compress a little bit, and then through Photoshop, mega ultra pixelize them, so that when you have them, and then transfer them in litho onto plate, then print them onto Japanese paper, and then when you see the image, you can't really see. You can tell that there's a figure. You can tell that there's something, but if you move back 50 yards, 100 yards, the image starts really appearing. You know that effect when you're in the subways and you see those big posters and you get up to it close and you see that dot, the dot separation where it's very apparent, and they're using very large dot separation, so it's kind of gross. It's kind of how can I say, very basic like that. But from afar, the image is perfect. So this is the same idea, except for multiplied by 50 in a sense. And Guilleminot we did 17 of these in 7 different versions at 5 copies. In other words, at the end there were over 600 different images, but each one signed a number at 5 copies. It was a beautiful project. This was in 2002. Claire Chenier. Now, Claire Chenier is recent. This is very recent. Young woman who I really liked her work. She came on a project with these collectors group that support artists here in Paris, French, who have been kind of electing artists they're interested in to set up shows and to buy their work, to create catalogs. They had done 10 of them in the past 5 years. And to kind of celebrate that, they invited them all to come to my place, each one at a time, and make a project. And she's a total abstract color field person. And we have, and where she is, let me just go down a bit. Right, up, and it actually works. My God, it works. You'll see the actual process. She's printing ink, solvent with a lot of solvent in it, onto a printing plate, vertically, letting the color come down, and she has several different colors. It was a very tense session because it would never really work automatically, and then she'd start coming with different colors, and everything would seep down somehow to a point where she would say, okay, this is it. Grab it, make it horizontal, put the paper on it, and run it through before it's destroyed, before the actual instant is no longer there. It's just about color flow. Let the color flow. And so then she had just said to me, let's go for it. So I'm putting it on the press, rolling it through, and now you're going to see sort of the first pass, because we did maybe 3 or 4 passes on the same sheet of constantly putting this color flow on it. And each time we would get a bit more of a close-up there. And yeah, and then it's starting to, and at the end it comes to this sort of world here, you see. So it became this huge installation piece of just color flow. And and we'll continue now. We want to do it in a really big size. The only problem with these type of projects, because these are one of a kinds, these are not editions, they're called monotypes. The only problem with this project is that we're using an intense amount of turpentine, and so it's not very cool after a few hours. We'd start at 9:30, and we wouldn't stop, and by 2 o'clock, 2:30, you're falling down, and you can't work anymore. So, and you'd wait a couple days to start over again. I mean, we were using masks and everything, but it doesn't really, do it. So that's okay to do it every so often. That project finished in July. We're in March right now. I'm starting to forget about it. She'll probably come back in June, and we'll start again. You get the idea. These are 2 new artists, very young. They just got out of the Art Décorative, the Art Déco school, and they got a grant to work at my place to make these very large format projects. It interested me to show you this, because this is also just another approach to how to make an image. Here they've got these designs that they're on the computer, and they have one of those plotter computers that has that passes vinyl through it, and then can cut vinyl, and the vinyl has a sticky side to it, so they can get all these shapes that come rolling out of that printer thing, and that's what you're seeing on the wall. It's those sort of they're acting as masks. These are masks. These masks are then placed upon, according to their idea, onto my printing press, glued onto it, and then I'm rolling the red over everything, so the whole press becomes red. And here they're just peeling off the vinyl. You get it? Peeling off the vinyl, and then we'll be putting the red, the blue, and the green, and the black strips. Those are plates that are rolled up, set on the thing, and then we put the paper on, pass it all through, and that was the first pass. So I'm just showing one, and this thing is, it's like 2 meters 20 high. It's huge, and I think we did maybe 9 of them, and this has more interventions on it, but just to give you an idea of how people go about things. Émilie Pitoisé, French conceptual artist mostly. Here she's she had this idea of how to capture water when it's drying up, how to transfer water onto paper and get that idea that that you have these patterns. I mean, sort of when you're in the summertime and somebody's washed the courtyard, and you start seeing the water drying up on the floor, sort of how to capture that instant. So she would take a big sheet of silk, put it in a bucket of water, and then bring it over the printing plate, wet, and let it just glide down on the printing plate. Let it sit there for a couple seconds. Julien, my main guy, is waiting there with the inking roller, who has a specific color on it that's kind of just a very light ochre, yellowish brown thing, but very, very light. And she's just waiting for it to settle, and then we'll pull it off. Julien will bring over the roller, roll on top of it, and I didn't put any other images. This is what it looks like in the end. So you see just how to take an imprint of something, how to have some sort of imprint. Émilie Pitoisé, that was 2 years ago maybe, and each time these are uniques, showing you a lot of unique projects. But hey, they're always. This is Kader Benchamma, a very remarkable draftsman, and he came in to do a small image, and you see it. This is something I just wanted to share a bit, because here you saw the black. So the black is printed. He drew it on stone. We printed it at 30 copies, and now he's intervening on each copy by hand with pen and pencil and touching up each one. So each proof is different, is unique in its own way, but it's signed in an edition of 30. You can see a little bit the variations there that he would put in. Yeah. So that was Benchamma, and he'll be back. He was good. Jean-François Morige, a exceptional abstract painter. He would have us get out everything that was round in the studio, anything that was round, so that he could use them to start swaying around his brushes. You see on the wall all those sort of round figures, patterns like that. So we would search everything, and including the huge tube there that carries paper normally, and that was great because he could get these incredible patterns going. And there he's setting up, and we'd always do it on the floor, so there was something kind of sacred about it. There you see some of the Marie-Ange prints that are both on Japanese paper, but also on gravel bags that are printed on both sides. And we would buy the gravel bags in the supermarkets and then cut them down, and then you have this sort of great surface in plastic that you could print with woodcut. Frédérique Loutz, extraordinary draftsperson, doing this huge figure called Le Gisant, and she's now, the black is printed, and now she has the flowers next to her, and she's going to be putting by hand on each proof this idea of the flowers wilting over the body. So these are big formats. And you see a bit of a Loutz atmosphere. This is kind of her, she sets up a corner at our place, which becomes this complete circus, and has just lots of great ideas everywhere. You know, it's like setting up your own cabin with your own world. Here we have Mr. William Mackendree, somebody I worked with quite a bit, and who is somebody who works here, I believe, although I'm not so sure anymore. Although I think he's coming to my place next week with a class, so he should still be around. Here he's working on this great project of having gone to Iceland in 2008, touring everywhere in Iceland, and bringing with him litho transfer paper so he could draw on location different landscapes, different elements of what interested him during his trip in Iceland. And instead of using all the equipment that I gave him of black ink and pencil and all that stuff, he was so fascinated by the black sand you have in Iceland everywhere that he would put it in a jar, mix up gum arabic and water, mix them all together, and everything you're seeing there is volcanic sand, then painted onto the litho mylars that then I would transfer onto lithoplate, and that was really something. Iceland, and it became a book. It became an artist book called Iceland Black. 20, not very much, 24 pages, 35 copies. It was a beautiful edition, and in a way, you know, I was sort of talking about it before, but so here I was with this artist, and I went to Iceland. You know, I spent 2 months on this book. Many of the things that are on the wall weren't selected for the book in the end. We imagined together a scenario of how to put all this stuff coherently in how you flip through pages, I guess you could say. But for me, it was like going to Iceland. So, what can you want more? And you can see a vision of the book there. We got Mackendree also preparing grounds on just ordinary wrapping paper, craft paper, where he will paint the before I print. He'll paint on the craft paper with flash paint. It was kind of like gouache, and create these big broad strokes over it. Fill the page. We let it dry. You can see other ones drying over there, and then we'll come on top with a huge woodcut that he'll have carved out before, and that's an example of one. And these things are, you know, they're huge. They're like 1.60 meters high. It's pretty healthy stuff. Jim Dine, American artist, of course, and we're going to be a bit heavy on Dine during the presentation here because he does a lot of really big formats and he does a lot of spectacular stuff, so it's kind of easy and to show and fun for me to show. This is when we first knew each other about a little over 15 years ago, where he asked me to set up a lithostone on an easel and just to draw amaryllis like that. And these are some of the amaryllis prints that are done on Korean paper or some godforsaken thing like that. Or this, really great. This is on French vellum paper, which is white, but printed in white. But see, if you buy black paper, or if you print black onto white, and then you want to print, you know, like a big black flat on a piece of paper, and then you want to come on top with this type of thing, with white, chalky type of image, it never works. It always is mushy and gray in the end. It just sinks into the paper. Black paper, if you buy black paper, it doesn't work at all. The only thing we found was to paint the white paper first with ping pong table paint, you know, or blackboard paint. It has a specific matte quality to it, a specific shine to it, with a slight amount of porous quality, but the ink can sit on the surface and not fade away, which is the problem with the other stuff. And this was a beautiful one. Back in 2005, he started getting very intensely into the Pinocchio subject matter. And you see him here, as kind of Kader Benchamma was doing before, individualizing each copy. Once we had printed a number of colors on it, he would come in and paint on each one, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that. Or throwing, I just did the black on lithoplate onto Japanese paper, and then he would come with buckets of red ink and just throw it on the wall and destroy the whole place, which we would then have to subsequently repaint. Or here he's preparing one of his famous robes. These are huge sizes, upon which I would print the black everywhere, and then he comes back on top with yellow paint. So each one is unique in a way. And this is a very surprising series that we did recently of abstract images, where here Barbara's getting worried because we're dragging on, but don't worry, things will be coming to an end, my dear. He's drawing out a pattern. Dine turned 80. Dine turned 80, and he said, to hell with you all, I just want to do what I want to do now. And he went abstract on us. And so he started making his first abstract stuff with us, and he got into this really hardcore chainsaw massacre woodcut thing for 6 months, and just started chopping up boards right and left without really any specific. And here we're inking up a very brown ground that we kind of see behind there. And this is how it starts. This is the birth of an image that is not going to look like this at all in the end. So you have all these sort of blobs that are coming together, and then he's starting to work with the chainsaw, hacking out different areas, which will then ink the top parts. I mean, it looks like cartography almost, but at the end it's just this weird stuff. And he's doing monotype. You have an actual plexiglass here that he's laying ink and paint on, and you can see the images are kind of starting to get kind of busy behind there. All the ink and the paint and the linseed oil. I mean, he's throwing literally the kitchen sink at a piece of paper. There we're passing some of the monotype type passes, but these are editions of 6 copies. They're signed and numbered at 6 copies. Here we're trying to register the big sheets. There's a detail. One of my main guys at the shop are tracing something because he started gouging into the paper. He started lacerating the paper. He started hurting the paper. But then we would have to hurt it the same way. There you see him with a grinder literally going into the paper surface once we finished that part of the printmaking. So it was this ping pong match. It's about painting through printing. He would cut out this wood pattern that we would then ink up, put the paper on, pass it through the press, and up on the wall, and you see the result. And then we do that 6 times. You can see how it's continuous. And then he would look at it and then come in with his own intervention, doing kind of the same thing on each proof with paint. And once that was done, he would imagine another step and say, well, let's try this. Let's try this piece of wood. And that's sort of what we're seeing. You can see the big yellow circle. He's doing it sort of the same thing at the same time in the same place of the image. And that big sort of pink blob next to it is a piece of wood that he mauled and then said, let's try this at that place. So we ink it up the same way. Now he's going into it with the grinder here and there to start lacerating the paper, and or hitting it with the brush. And I mean, that's a great shot. Grinder and brush in hand will travel. Grinder and brush going at the same time on the same sheet. And that's what the image looks like in the end. I'm avoiding lots of the steps here because Barbara's going to get angry with me after a while. And so there actually were 6 images. I'm showing you 2 of the images here. I just like this shot because he's like this black bee in this sort of environment. This was the first pass, and he's starting to lacerate the paper so that we're going to print on top of destroyed surfaces in the paper itself, which create these incredibly beautiful effects. And collaging. See those sort of purple and yellow parts that look like paper? Those are paper. Those are actually misprints from his old prints that we had done 10 years before that we just kept lying around. And he would cut them up and have us cut them up exactly the same way, and then we'd paste them onto the print, and then back on top with more woodcut, more paint. I'm actually following quite well the scenario here. And you see the tray there that has all of his different colors and stuff, and he's ready to go. And this is about the end of this image. No, he keeps on going, sorry. Keeps on going, and now he's going to destroy completely one of his images by chainsawing it. So you see some of the behind, you see a lot of the wood boards that he created and that he would sometimes just saw in half, and we'd use bits and pieces of it. And that's what this one looks like in the end. Some of them were really spectacular. We're going to end with this. This is him now. This is today. This actually started in January, and there'll be some images from yesterday, because I thought it was kind of amusing to say, just to show you that stuff just keeps on going. He's gotten into his head. It's a self-portrait. He's made a few paintings in the past 6 months of just this outline of his head. He's got big ears that stick out a lot, and so there you have the wood board and the paintbrush with Indian ink just brushed onto the board, so that he indicates where he is going to carve his board afterwards. And you see all the tools that are on the table there, because he's going to start tracing them. You see the hammer, or no, that's a hatchet. He's going to start tracing it, so that the image is going to start filling itself up with tons of his tools, right and left. Oh, and this actually, no. Oh, wait, right.
There's a video.
I thought there should be one. Tara! Right, there should be one video of him actually sawing away at the stuff. And
where did it
no, that's not me.
Oh, that's you. That's right.
That's me.
Me too.
So I thought there was a few
There
extras
is.
in there.
It's in there. It's in there. Oh,
It's
all right.
okay.
We can go
Oh, well,
back.
no, that's not okay.
Oh,
I'm going to have to speed you through all this and see if we... Because it's kind of fun to see an old guy, 82 years old, now 83, going at it with a chainsaw.
Gorgeous there.
Yeah, you've got another 2 years to go. No, you're almost there. We're... And now the next one is the next one. It should be that one.
It's right. It was there. Here, I'm gonna pull it off the screen.
Yeah, you pull it off the screen. You got it right there. It's just to hear a sound, you know.
Something's
Oh,
up with that
VLC. You
one.
got to open up the good old VLC. Sorry, folks, for this moment of wonderful technology. I know it's going to happen. Yeah, it's just that. Just so that you could get some chainsaw action in your ears for a while.
It's not,
It's got to be a bit smaller, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, there you go. You see all the power tools on the table there? That's all, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I said, you get a peek. You get a peek, you get a peek. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Well,
It is a very
please.
rich talk. Do you guys have any questions? Okay.
You've created like such an incredibly established operation, really, and I'm curious. Do you think that Paris, as a city, has anything to do with that, or do you think you could have created this anywhere else in the world?
I don't think I could have done it in Idaho, nor in Indiana. No, not like this. I mean, all the tools are the same, certainly. Certainly, I mean, for one thing, Paris has, like several big cities, but Paris is kind of unique. You have all the materials at hand you can get within a half day, or you can order and have it delivered the next day. When you're printing in Bilbao or in Rome or in Austria, you have to order everything. It takes months to get. So just that immediacy right away is really good. Obviously, big metropolises tend to have artists coming through, simply like that, more than if you're in a smaller place. I feel good in an urban setting, and I think that to have a shot of making a business work where you can eat, you better do it in a big city, in this type of thing. If you don't have money to start some sort of foundation or something in a great, beautiful place in the countryside, which I would love, theoretically speaking, but that's not happening. You know what I mean? That's not happening. In Paris, you got everybody coming through at some point or another. I mean, not everybody, but enough to make me go to be very full of stuff. I always dreamt of printing elsewhere, like setting up a project in a country house, setting up a press on one of my biggest dreams was to go on a barge through the Burgundy canals, and have a litho press on because it's very slow moving, so you could go for a month and you'd only go a few miles, but you could make some great projects with an artist because you'd be stuck on the barge. I love those ideas. It just never happens, and sort of, I've had enough at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month. If I leave my studio and go someplace, I really don't want to print anymore. I just want to do something else, But who knows? Maybe one day. Maybe one day, I know, but it's great. Is there a print department here? I mean, are there printing presses here? Mm-hmm. There are.
I'll show you.
Do you actually use them? Really?
Do you guys use them?
Small.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. But are we talking about etching? We're talking about etching presses, litho presses, silk screen? Silk screen and etching, yeah. No, litho press, yeah. Yeah, that's normal. Litho's it's a very heavy technique to carry. Yeah. But with that already, silk screen and etching, one can do a hell of a lot. Because an etching press, I mean, you saw what I have. I use etching presses to make lithography. Because basically an etching press is just a cylinder that has a sheet of metal that rolls underneath it. So it just means pressure. And once you have pressure, well, you can really get carried away with tons of ideas. Not necessarily just etchings, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Do you guys have any other question?
I know, but it's good. You got to
I
go
have
get.
one. I have one.
You got one, Barbara.
I want to know why do you say that you're not an artist?
Oh, because I'm not, and I
Well,
never.
so how?
never-
Because you're so involved in the process. You're
That's
like-
different. It's different.
You have a creative role in the process.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
What's
decisions
your
that I make.
definition of an artist? What do you have to do to be an artist?
I don't know. You gotta have it in you, and sort of not be able to do anything else in your life. I mean, that's those people that I work with. They couldn't do anything else, as far as I can see.
Can you do?
Hmm?
Can you? I mean, you spend most of your days in the atelier.
Yeah.
This is your life.
Yeah, of course. No, but it's different. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's in any case, it's true that for most artists who are painters and well, painters, I guess, they're isolated beings. They're with their canvas or they're with their work. They're in their studio. They don't have other people to collaborate with, to share it with. And this is a moment where they kind of have to share what's going on, where we're going to get someplace. They have to share the gesture, and that's cool. That's great. I mean, that's what I like. I will never tire to see the birth of an image, in that sense. After that, you better make the image good, because it's a hell of a lot of work to get it moving in all that process. So it's got to merit being printed. It's got to merit being published somehow. So there's a pressure also. You know, there's also a pressure.
Well, Michael, I was just curious, do you ever have any artists come in who are also like artist printmakers, but they come to work with you because you have the material or the presses that they can't do what they want?
I guess not very much. It's true that I'm racking my brain and I'm not seeing it. But it probably exists. But no, because generally the artists because I approach the artists mostly, and so I'm approaching people who interest me for what they do, and definitely not because they know how to make prints, and most of them have no idea, except for somebody like Dine, of course. But most people have no idea how to make a print, and I kind of prefer that somehow in my little world over there at the Bastille. I kind of prefer that they don't have flying hours, and they develop the flying hours with us live, so there's a lot of awkwardness, not awkwardness, but they'll do stuff that somebody who's been doing it won't necessarily think of doing. And that's that freshness that I think I'm attracted towards in that sense.
So do you also have like one artist coming to work at a time? Because from the pictures that you show, it seems like each person who comes completely takes over the space and makes it their own.
That is correct. That's definitely the case. We're talking maybe half days, and then the other half of the day there's somebody else, and we take everything down, and then store it, and then the next morning, or it'll last for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks with just those images up on the wall, or months. We'll run several projects simultaneously. We try to avoid the artists meeting each other, running into each other. It doesn't work. But you try, just so that you're concentrated on the person, because there's always something going on that you need to be focused on and give advice or help happen, or however you want to call it. So I don't like having a battery of artists that are all working at the same time. It never really excited me that. It's just that for practical or logistical reasons, it does happen. You know, we had this great French woman, or drawer, with us during those crazy Dine abstracts where he was just tearing everything apart, and she was making these very meticulous, incredibly beautifully, like Ingres type of drawings onto stone of these images of of somebody cutting up octopuses, squid. It was for like preparation for cooking, you know, and there's just great images, but extremely refined drawing to a point of and of course it took her months to do, and she, I mean, you know that stuff, and so she was there silently on her stone. We put her in the front space, and we had Dine taking up the whole rest of the space with all the grinders and the Dremels and the chainsaws, making a racket all day long, and she would just silently make forward progress. So I do have two spaces where they're separated, so to speak, so that I can, in a way, carry that type of thing.
And is it ever hard for you as a printer to make that shift from one person's world to another?
It does, it can be, but I don't know, you just do it. It can be, yeah. That's fun. That's what my response would be to what Barbara was asking before. And that's what we're here for. You know, that's what I get my kick out of. And that's where we'll keep going. I mean, the stuff we were doing today with Dine is just unbelievable where he's going, and. Yeah, it's just so surprising. Or somebody like that can get the momentum going day after day, can still surprise us today, you know. It's like, Jesus Christ, how did he come up with that idea? Where did that come from? And yeah, and that's great. That's really great. So that's what you live it for. And I'm not here to take the place of an artist. I'm here to, you know, bring it on. Bring it on. You know.
Do you guys have any other question? We're almost at the end. 5 minutes.
I mean, we can't go have a drink now.
Yeah, we can.
No.
But if we go have a very last question that we ask to all our participants.
Yes.
Which is what's according to you the most important lesson that you have learned since you started?
To become an artist, or just to do what you do? In a sense?
What you do.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't know. Tenacity. Tenacity. I think is much more is the most important of all. I mean, it's far more important than talent. If you can throw some talent into the mix, it's better for all of us. But it's not even that necessary to succeed. I'm saying, you know, to make it happen. Tenacity is by far the biggest character trait that just can't really get away from. I mean, it makes it happen. But please, may there be talent in it. You know what I mean?
I know. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you
so much. Now we can go up and have a drink and then have a chat.
Yes. Let me close all systems down.